Hi, I'm Sloan Mann.
And I'm Tim Fairbank, and we're the professors for the course Award of Peace Transitions, MSFS 644. For our course, the overall objective is to prepare students to succeed in how to conduct and implement and manage international development programs in countries undergoing political transition or in conflict, post-conflict settings. Throughout the class, each student will be able to learn how to design programs, design country strategies, monitor and manage and implement programs in areas that are very difficult and untraditional political situations.
And some of the key takeaways will be developing the key skills necessary for practitioners to work effectively in these complex and unstable environments, such as developing a sophisticated operational understanding of the environment through a comprehensive stakeholder analysis, presenting a set of recommendations, whether they be policy or programmatic, to decision makers. And they could be in government, they could be in the NGO sector, they could be in the donor community or the private sector. And then finally, developing a work plan and a realistic budget for implementing and measuring development activities.
We feel this class is extremely important because more and more the challenges the international development community are facing in places like Syria, Yemen, Ukraine, Libya, Tunisia, Lebanon, Afghanistan, all places where we currently work, are becoming more and more complex and nuanced. And so we see this new trend, the post-Arab Spring period, as being very different from, let's say, post 9/11 development projects or the post-Cold War era in the 1990s. And what's required now is very different, and oftentimes you're balancing counterterrorism priorities versus international development priorities, and learning how to balance those two or how to succeed in a development program when U.S. policy or other policy might be more focused on counterterrorism and the natural security challenges that you have. It's becoming more and more important to learn how to be best effective in these areas.
And who should take this class? Clearly, students who are interested in a career in international development, but also students who will be interested in the Foreign Service or want to focus on policy. Because we're going to be grappling with the challenges of working in these high priority countries, and in meaningful ways and in ways that can be measured. After graduating from West Point, I joined the Army and I served multiple tours in the Balkans. It was there I got my first taste of peacekeeping and I was hooked. So I left the Army to join a career in international development, and since then I've been fortunate enough to work for donors like USAID, for think tanks, and in the private sector. And it was as a grad student at MSFS that I met Tim.
Yeah, both before and after MSFS, I spent about a decade with the National Democratic Institute, primarily focusing on countries in the former Soviet Union. Worked in Central Asia, the Caucasus, Eastern Europe, primarily to assist on civil society development programs, political parties, media programs, parliamentary assistance, and whatnot. And it was after Sloan and I met at MSFS, a couple of years later, we came together after having some private sector experience in forming development transformations. We wanted to essentially bridge the gap or fill a niche that we thought was missing, and that is taking more of a traditional development approach with Sloan's expertise and background in CivMil, humanitarian assistance, and both of our regional expertise complementing each other quite well. And right now, and we're currently operating in the countries I mentioned above or previously, and in about 7 or 8 countries right now, and expanding. And every place we work, it's challenging. It's the Syrias, the Libyas, the Yemens, Ukraine, and it's a fascinating time because there are very few organizations working in those places, and learning how to be effective and how to succeed, whether you're in that country or you're forced to evacuate and work remotely. And we feel a lot of the skills that from our current background, our current work, will be applicable to this class. Our course essentially has 4 deliverables and activities that the students will be responsible for. The first 2 I'll cover. One is group presentations, where students will break up in groups in each class, give a lengthy presentation about a current conflict, covering the history and background, going over the key stakeholders, and offering recommendations for how to assist in resolving or improving or stabilizing the current situation. Number 2 is conducting and writing a stakeholder analysis, where students will be required to think about who are the key stakeholders, both locally, inside the country, and the stakeholders that are regional and internationally focused.
Third, students will be required to write a concise policy memo recommending a specific course of action to decision makers. Writing is an incredibly important skill, and we want to nurture that in this class. And finally, students will develop a logical work plan to implement a set of activities, and accompanying that, a budget that will have to be submitted, that would be submitted to a donor that demonstrates cost realism for these activities.